What's up and welcome back. I'm John Stern from ActTheMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic. And today I'm excited to be talking about number one on the call sheet. Feels like it's an Apple Plus event. Is that a thing? Can I say that? Could we call it an event? It's essentially like two documentaries that are placed together, but they kind of work separately, but they also are very symbiotic. They kind of tell the same narrative, but from two different perspectives. It would be like if Apple had released Boy State and Girl State at the same time. Those documentaries have been treated as two separate documentaries, but arguably they could have done the same thing here and just released them like a year apart, and then they would have had two standalone documentaries to be able to compete for whatever by themselves. So it is sort of like a mini-series documentary event instead. Probably the best way to describe it. But anyway, it has audio description on Apple Plus, and we're going to talk about it. So click like and subscribe. Got to remind you to do that because that's welcome to the internet. And since I have a lot of blind users, I will introduce myself. I don't do this enough in my videos. I've got a purple baseball cap on backwards. It's a New York Yankees cap, by the way, so I think you can see the New York logo. Black sunglasses, and I'm wearing, I believe it's a green shirt for Loki. That would make sense, but it's a Loki shirt, like Marvel's Loki. It just says Loki. It actually has something on the back, but I'm sitting down in a chair, so you wouldn't be able to see that. So for number one on the call sheet, what this is a pretty amazingly expansive interview series, sitting down with a lot of, or most of, the top Black actors and actors in Hollywood, those who have had the privilege of being able to be, you guessed it, number one on the call sheet, which is, as they sort of talk about at the beginning of the first documentary, it's interesting to sort of watch yourself rise and to come in at like number 58 and you're just sort of playing man, and then you just sort of see yourself rise up through the ranks, and eventually you get to number one on the call sheet, and you're the guy, you're the number one person, you're the most important person on that film set, and what that means to be the most important person, but also to be Black, and the weight that carries. And they talk about it currently through a host of actors and actresses. There's the first episode is all men. The second episode is all women, because they face completely different challenges, and there are different sets of them. So like there are far more men who have been given the opportunity to lead films over women. And I was thinking that there are even men that I think there are plenty of Black men who have led a film that have been left off the list. You know, there are plenty of men who have been number one on the call sheet that I don't think were invited to be interviewed. Part of that problem is the audio description didn't necessarily name every single person. It also, I like the audio description more for the second film than the first film, but it kind of really, yes, I recognize these actors' voices, I think, for the most part. I think I got everybody who was there. I don't think I missed anybody. But at the same time, having the shifts between people and trying to match their voice and be like, oh yeah, that's so-and-so. Oh, yep, that sounds like, not being able to have that immediate facial recognition, because obviously all these people are famous because they're literally stars. They're number one. A lot of them have had these huge hits and box office smashes, and but I think the call sheet runs even deeper than this. If we're being honest, I noticed they didn't touch on too many rappers turned actors, and a lot of those have been able to turn in number one on the call sheet performances. So Uh, it's I thought the interviews were really interesting. The focus on also the correlation to the Oscars, um, the representation of black talent that came before them that is no longer alive to be able to speak for themselves, specifically Sidney Poitier, and what Sydney meant to black actors. They focus a lot, really heavily on that moment in um, uh, his his film where he gets to in the heat of the night, where he where he got to slap the white man, and what that meant for them. And we learned, at least I learned, that Sidney actually had it in his contract that if he was going to do that, that the studio was contractually obligated to not cut it ever show that Sidney was slapped, and he didn't respond in kind. So um, it's interesting that at that point that he had the kind of star power to be able to pull that off, to put that in a contract negotiation where people understood this is part of the movie and you can't remove it. You can't cut it for safety purposes or because you think it'll play better in the South if Sidney doesn't slap back or whatever it is. So, yeah, we hear from sort of a wide variety of actors. Uh, older ones like Denzel and Morgan, and um, all the way up through newer ones, Michael B. Jordan, Daniel Kaluuya. We get the British perspective, Idris coming over and talking about how he didn't he came here and suddenly he was attractive and people called him chocolate, and he didn't realize that he brings up that the darker the berry, the sweeter the juice, which immediately made me think of that song from Hairspray. Um, Run and Tell That. So, uh, yeah, it's interesting to see all these people coming in and represent and discuss. And this is sort of like one of those things that it's like, man, this could have gone on forever. I wonder, did he offer it to everybody or did he just say, I have enough? You know? Because I kind of think if you're going to go for a series, if you're going to go number one on the call sheet, you might as well make it like a docu-series and really just go for it and go through, break it down into uh, the different generations and talk about these people who had the opportunity to stand on top of a film and be the film's lead. There really isn't any. We kind of just jump the black leads that came through in blaxploitation. So, like, I'm pretty certain Pam Grier was not in the female section, uh, and she could have been. She's still alive. She's done other things since then, but she also has definitely been number one on the call sheet for a movie before. It's just, is that a film that people wanted to talk about? I think is the question. So, um, it's fascinating, but it's also like, I kind of want to know, like, why weren't some people not focused on? Why didn't we invite certain? Did they say no? Did you not invite them? That's the only question that I have. It doesn't really affect the actual impact of the project. The problem is that I like the project too much, and I just wanted more of it. Like, I wanted this to be a thing because of being like a film nerd. I wanted to sit there and listen to all of these guys talk about their experiences and the road, the path that it took for them to get to number one on the call sheet, and the various struggles that they had along the way, or didn't have, being a black actor, depending on how easy it was for them based on the time in which they came up. Was it harder for Denzel than it is for Michael B. Jordan? Who was number one on the call sheet almost right away. I mean, Fruitvale Station. Who else would be number one on that call sheet? So, um, yeah, it's it's certainly an interesting look at that that rise to stardom and how we get there. But I do think that there are more, and maybe there's a point to not showing you as many, because then it looks like, oh wow, it's limited to just these. No, it's really not limited to just those. It's just that's how many we're willing to discuss. Um, and some people we're not allowed to talk to anymore. You know, Nate Parker didn't make it to number one on the call sheet. Just nobody wants to talk to Nate Parker anymore. So, um, but I don't know who else would have been number one on the call sheet for Birth of a Nation. So, yeah, we do have sort of on a broader scale. I think there are other actors who have managed to reach that pinnacle, that moment, and we just didn't have time, you know. In the hour, first one's like an hour and 40. The second one's a little bit shorter. Uh, the women, on the other hand, they have to contend with the fact that far less of them are offered lead roles. The statistic that's given is like 4% of films released are led by a black actress, and which is sadly, I didn't even it didn't even like feel to me like that wasn't a, a possibility, because it actually does feel like that's a possibility, that is the actual statistic. That 4% of films. Of course, we had one this year, One of Them Days, which put Keke Palmer, would have definitely been number one on that call sheet. So she could have been interviewed for this, but the interviews were done. The interviews don't really reflect Zoe Saldana's win for Emilia Perez, so I mean, this was already like locked and in the can by the time that happened. You know, she won in March and this documentary came out in the same month, so they didn't have an opportunity to become reflective upon Saldana's Oscar trajectory. But it does talk about how, as one of the ladies puts it, that the Oscars are willing to hand out supporting trophies to black women like candy canes, but Halle is still the only black actress to have won the prize. I was actually really hoping that would change this year. For me personally, and the video's still up. My best actress list of the year, my favorite performances by actresses in 2024. My number one on my call sheet was Marianne Jean-Baptiste for Hard Truths. So if I had had my way, we would have changed that statistic this year. Unfortunately, not enough Oscar voters saw Hard Truths for that to be the reality, which is sad, because Marianne is fantastic in that movie. She couldn't even earn the Oscar nomination. So, yeah, going through and pointing out, all of the people who lost along the way for their various performances, there were some times where I was reminded, yeah, I would have picked that over that. I would have picked that over that. Not every single time. Not every single time a black actress was nominated in lead would I have swapped, but certainly there are definitely times. One of them being Frances McDormand's third Oscar win for Nomadland over Viola Davis's potential win from Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. I don't think Frances's win for Nomadland is necessarily that engaging or exciting. I think Nomadland is one of the least exciting wins we've had recently, and I think it's gonna become like Crash, but for like the next generation. Sadly, it's gonna be the film that people just kind of point out because of what it was nominated against and what could have won instead. And considering Anthony kind of slid in and knocked Chadwick out, I think the fact that Viola was also knocked out of contention by Frances was uh, not really a good night for representation. So, um, yeah, hopefully it'll happen sooner rather than later. But it is, and we do get to hear from Hallie, and she's like reflective upon the fact that as the only Black actress who's won, it shows her speech and it shows her, believing that she broke down this door and this barrier. And she was thinking about all the possibilities of people who could come after her, but she's still the only one. We just had our 97th Academy Award, and there's only ever been one Black actress winner. Every time somebody asks me about, like, should we do gender neutral, I'm like, we're still at the point where we've done 97 of these, and only once have we deemed a Black actress acceptable for the win. And you want to combine the categories because you trust Oscar voters enough to be able to handle gender neutral voting? I don't. So it's no, I don't. And I think this documentary highlights perfectly why we sadly have to keep the Oscars gender separate for now. Sorry to those who are finding it hard to squeeze themselves into, am I an actor and I'm an actress? Listen, we still have categories at the Oscars where a woman hasn't even won the category, Best Cinematography. We have 97 dudes who have won that category. I mean, the representation is so all over the place with the Oscars that until we can stop having our firsts, then once we get past that, then maybe we can talk about combining, but it's definitely going to be past the 100 mark. So yeah, it's enlightening to hear all of these amazingly wonderful Black actors and actresses talk about their time, their representation, their struggles, the power of why they wanted to be actors. And everybody's different. Everybody sort of gets a different opportunity to talk about their story. And it features some longer than others. Some actors have also made a larger impact than others. But yeah, it does kind of make me wonder, like, why we didn't go full on and just do a docu-series, because I feel like there were people who were left out. I feel like there were voices I didn't hear. There were people who weren't mentioned in the conversation, and we didn't get to hear all those people. And I definitely think those people were number one on the call sheet. And then you have films that it's really hard to determine who was number one on the call sheet, really, because they're an ensemble movie. I guess we're counting, because Taye Diggs is here. So I don't know what else he was number one on the call sheet for, but I'm going to guess it was The Best Man. So, because he mentions when he's talking about his rise, he talks about how he got cast and how Stella got a group back. And Taye just hasn't had that many opportunities to lead films. He can't be the lead of Rent. Benny is not the lead of Rent. So he is kind of limited in his opportunities to be a lead role. I guess he could be considered the lead of House on Haunted Hill, but I have a feeling he's not. I have a feeling he was not number one on that call sheet, simply because at the time he wasn't, his name wasn't high enough. He wasn't as well known as, Academy Award nominee Jeffrey Rush, or Academy Award winner Jeffrey Rush, who was also in that movie, or Peter Gallagher, Famke Janssen, who had already been in more films at that point and had larger profiles than he. So Um, yeah, I I definitely recommend this. The audio description for the second one I liked more than the first one. That just is how it was. I don't know why. I just felt like there was a more concerted effort to make sure that the second one had more of those interjections and more times of um there was more audio description. I just think there's more audio description in the second one than the first one. Maybe that's just my perception, but I really did. I thought the first one was okay. Like it's largely a talking head thing, so I wasn't expecting like verbose audio description, but at the same time, I was expecting more than what I got. Like I feel like it still came in under what my projections were. And then for the second film, I actually think it did land where my expectations had it. So um, I and maybe a little bit more than what I would expect from a talking head documentary. So I would recommend both of these chapters. I think it's an excellent little project assembled. I don't know what its awards potential is. I'm assuming it's going to compete for Emmy voters since it feels like it's a connected docu miniseries. I wish they had gone more episodes, but it's good to leave you wanting more. But in some ways, it also feels like it's incomplete. Like we didn't talk to enough people, or because I don't think that many people said no to this, but it does feel like several people have been left off the list. So, um, yeah, I'm gonna give number one on the call sheet. I'm gonna give it an A minus, just because even though I think the project is incredibly strong, I think if you're gonna go the for an Apple Plus sort of TV format, like a part one and a part two, I don't know why you couldn't break it up more and invite more voices into the room, and then sort of divide it up a little bit more by decade, and have and explore because we do get to talk about like Hattie McDaniel, but obviously she's not there to talk about herself. Explore it a little bit more historically, and then work your way up and invite those people in. I think that probably would have benefited the series more than doing it just like man woman, and it would have allowed for more voices to be invited to the table and for people to talk about their experience being number one on the call sheet, um, even if they are sort of a non-traditional performer like Ice Cube, who has obviously had plenty of opportunities to be number one on the call sheet, even if he did come up as a rapper. He's obviously clearly been number one on the call sheet multiple times. So anyway, that's it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And I will see you guys on the other side.